Dubey. Let me call you sir because nahi hoga sir abhi ye Amit Dubey or sir wala paradox. So welcome to this podcast slash show, or rather I like to keep it and call it conversation. So welcome to this conversation, Mr. Dubey. And let me tell my viewers, it's a very,
You
yes,
can call Amit. That would be better.
I'll try. At least for the next 30 minutes, I'll try, Amit.
Great.
Not very comfortable still. For all our viewers, this conversation is very special, not only because this entails another exciting episode of Creativity Rules, where we try to debunk the different assumptions people have associated with creativity. We try to also bust the misnomers that people have about creativity. And most importantly, we talk about how, as an individual, professional, as a human, you can discover, harness, and nurture creativity as a life skill. It's not a professional skill. Now, the reason this episode is special because I have with me a consultant, an author, a Yoda-like human who I have never seen to lose his composure. And he's also been my college professor during my MBA days. And I have a confession to make. I used to bunk a lot of lectures, but his is one session that I used to attend very, very judiciously. And it's because that one of the most striking thing about his personality is the content used to be very real, story-based, practical, and every session he used to bring some ingenious technique of teaching. So thank you so much, Mr. Dubey, for making time for this conversation. And for this conversation, and welcome to Creativity Roots.
My pleasure. It's special for me as well when you see some of your bright students have taken a very unconventional path and followed the principle which you have been advocating, throughout your life.
Yes, sir. So I've known you since 2011 now, and I've seen you in your different colors and facets. I've seen you as a professor. I've seen you work as a and the appearance also. I'm just wondering when my time will come and I'll be like in that space. And I've seen you as a consultant. You are an expert in change and organizational development. And now you've also become an author. And so with every phase, I see you evolve. My question to you is, how do you figure out what is going to be my next role? Or how do you work against this fixated notion that, okay, now I'm a consultant, so I'll be doing my consultant job well. So what triggered you to become an author and what's next?
If I look back at my own journey, when I started, and I think I've narrated umpteen number of times, even when I was teaching. So that's the older narrative, which I'm not going to talk, here, because you guys are quite aware about that. We're going to talk about, post institute, when I got into consulting, and I think from there, what happened and what emerged.
Sure.
So basically, what happens, and I have realized that in my life, that I am not a marathon runner. I'm more like a sprint runner. So what do I mean by that? Generally, if I take back my career, when I started teaching, I thought, teaching is the ultimate thing in my life and I'm going to do it till I retire. But 5 years, I got saturated. The next what? Then came consulting. Then I thought, oh my God, now I'm in my ultimate calling and I'm going to now do it forever and ever and ever.
Yeah.
And where I realized that consulting is not just about advising and structuring and strategizing, but there is, more about change management. And that led me to a next level of evolution of consulting. So what you might have seen my avatar of being an expert, being thought leader, giving gyan, is now a very different kind of consulting where I listen more. I pick up the here and now moments. I take the unspoken clues of the client, go deeper. So that's the next level of evolution that kept me engaged in the next sprint that I took. And I think over a period of time, I said, okay, now what next? And that's where the coaching journey started, where you looked at individuals, went deeper, touched a lot of deeper beliefs and paradigms.
Sure.
And during that journey, I think when I started writing, which, more came as, okay, I need to brand myself, which I'm not very strong in area.
Yeah.
So what can I do? So, people said, why don't you start writing? Because what you talk, typically makes a lot of sense. And then when I started writing, and that's where the interest and the I think aspiration started building up, that if I can write a blog and it is being appreciated, and uh, I think then why not write a book. And then COVID was a blessing in disguise. I think if COVID would have happened, I wouldn't have been here. So for me, I think throughout, if I look back at my life, 5 years is where I get saturated in a particular identity. So I'm still a consultant, but the way I consult is completely different than the way I was doing maybe 5 years back. So maybe, after 5 years, you might find me doing something else.
I look forward to that avatar, because with each avatar, the looks also undergo massive changes. So I look forward to 5 years down the line, Amit 3.0. Okay, Amit, what I want to know from you is, the title of your book says, Why Go to Himalayas for Wisdom? And when I first hear it, it definitely catches attention. So, what was your rationale behind coming up with this title? How did you get the triggers for writing a book on this subject?
So there are two questions that you're asking.
Yes.
One is why this book, why this theme, and second is, I think you're asking how did you arrive at this title.
Yes.
So because it's quite a creative title to put. Typically you won't, in fact people have given different interpretations to the book and the title without even looking at the content. So from a theme perspective, I think now I'm talking more from a philosophical lens. Whatever you do is nothing but a manifestation of what you are, right? That's the underlying thing. So what I was maybe 15 years, 20 years back has completely evolved to what I am today. So maybe 15 years back I was a very structured person. So read books like avid reader, fascinated with concepts. That's the kind of person I was. But over a period of time, I think there was a lot of realizations, there was a lot of self-evaluation. And then I realized knowledge or realization or wisdom is not contained in certain constructs, certain people, or certain places. I think if you are mindful, if you're observant, if you are living your life in the here and now, I think learning and wisdom is everywhere. You need not kind of restrict learning, or it's not I would say limited to a certain place or a people. It is beyond that. And that's where as a person I got evolved. That's where I started learning from my conversations with my kids, with my wife, with my clients, a casual chat with a neighbor we are just jogging around, and that kind of tinkled that idea within me, and wondering why I am here, what do I need to do, introspect more deeper. I'm just running from one work to another work, one identity to another identity. And sometimes I feel I need to go to Himalayas, a place where there's no one, absolute nature, and there's no one around. I said, this is it, this is the title, your me time can't be in your daily, activities. Your me time has to be somewhere out there, once in a while, close to,
Okay. So, and how did you arrive at this title? Why to go to the Himalayas for wisdom?
That's a very interesting one, and touching base. And I think you have a lot of conversations and touch base with a lot of creativity, and I think that's one of the creative process. So I was thinking about this title, and then daily wisdom, worldly wisdom. Wisdom was one key theme, and because it's from everyday experiences of yours, so it was everyday, worldly, wisely, all those. I was forcing myself, let me come up with a very interesting word. But let me almost 15 days, 30 days passed away, and I could not get that aha moment. And that's where I realized that I'm forcing myself too hard, which is an antidote to creativity. Creativity happens. It happens when you allow yourself to just flow naturally and organically.
Yeah.
So once, I was just having a conversation with my wife, and that's the first chapter. In fact, that's the entire, pretext of the first entire, introducing the title. Where, one day my wife came and just told me, Amit, can you manage our kids for a week without me? And I was like, oh my God, what are you up to? You want to go to your mom's place? She said, no. So then what? Like, why are you asking that question? Then she said, and this was during COVID times. That sometimes I feel, my life is becoming too monotonous. I'm not getting that kind of me space, me time, that reflecting space, and wondering why I am here. What do I need to do? Introspect more deeper. I'm just, running from one work to another work, one identity to another identity. And sometimes I feel I need to go to Himalayas, a place where there's no one, absolute nature, and there's no one around. I said, this is it, this is the title, your me time can't be in your daily, activities. Your me time has to be somewhere out there, once in a while, close to,
in an external space, which it's like kilometers away from your workspace. Yeah.
I was so happy when she narrated this. And she was like, why are you jumping? I said, I finally got the title that I was looking for.
But did she go to the Himalayas after that, Amit?
From there, she's been taunting me like anything. That you are the best example. If a wife puts a wish to save,
you convert that into a chapter.
Put that wish into something very creative for yourself, but no benefit to the wife.
Interesting. Now we know that. Amit, I want to know from you, this is an interesting aspect that you touched upon, that the idea of this book was born when you had that time and space during COVID. Now, I'm sure getting adjusted to the work schedule and working style during COVID, which was essentially work from home, took some time. Which is that moment when you were at COVID? Because I know, including myself, for the first 2 months, it seemed like I was in a flux. I was not able to make sense of what was happening. And I, spent a lot of time, oh my God, that training got cancelled. Now it's virtually, it's not going to happen. So there was this grief period. And in that grief period, somehow forget about creativity, doing the basic thing got compromised, right? So how did you, fathom and collect all those cues that, no, now I have to write a book? And was there any grief period that you underwent? I know. You usually don't, but still.
No, that is your perception.
Yeah, because I know Amit sir 2011, so yeah. Every age samajh aa jayegi, so let's not get there. So over to you.
So I think that this is a very interesting question, and I think so. I work with organizations on multiple facets, and strategy is one of the core facets.
Yes.
I work with organizations. So when this COVID thing happened, first question was, how long will it happen? And I think it was pretty clear, within 1 or 2 months that it's going to stay over here.
Yes.
I made up my mind, it's going to stay over here, at least for a year or so. That was pretty much clear. That's why, every organization was looking at work from home at least till March 2021. So that one thing was very clear in my head. Second thing is, okay, now that the fact is this is going to be staying here, business is going to impact, and eventually my consulting work is eventually going to impact. Now that's an external situation. How do I respond to it? So there were two ways. One is you kind of pivot your business model. You think creatively something around and do something which is kind of push yourself, market yourself, do something in your services which will be bought in the COVID era.
Yeah.
But honestly speaking, for me, I also wanted to go to Himalayas because it's been 5-6 years and I was working like hell into consulting, day and night, and I think this was like a breather space for me. And I thought, okay, people take sabbatical, right, in their life.
Yeah.
So what if I consider this next 1 year
as a sabbatical?
Yeah. I looked at my balance sheet and my bank balance and my savings first. Let me tell you that. The first thing I did is if I don't earn a single money for the next 1 year, how what is going to be the impact on my EMIs, on my savings and everything. and it was quite, I think, safe.
Hmm.
So once I did that homework and calculation, I said, let me live my life now and do what I wanted to always do for this next 1 year. Anyways, business to hone wala nahi hai. I'm
Ji.
not a great marketer. My strength is not marketing. I don't want to pivot my business model. In fact, I want to do something which I always dreamt about, but never had the time. So this thought, based on the homework and the
Hmm.
external reality,
Hmm.
gave me the peace of mind.
That
So
I can allow that space to do something
yeah,
that I love without feeling guilty.
yeah. So rather than worried about a business nahi ho raha hai, there's no work happening. People used to know work happening. Ah, theek hai, I'm more than happy
Hmm.
because I'm getting to do spend more time with my family, spend more time writing, spend more time doing things which I exercising. I had almost skip exercising and sports, which were core part of my life. I
Hmm.
reconnected that. So many things of myself which I had abandoned and maybe forgotten. This last 1 year, actually, I got time to do all those things, and that's where it made an impact. And that's what reflecting in the book also. That life is not just about work, which was my earlier identity.
Yeah.
Now I feel it has to be have that balance. And the more you do that, actually your work
Gets
impacts,
better.
is improving more. So that one
So,
year was like, just stop everything else and do what you love in your life.
so Amit, during that phase, did you also say no to projects because
No,
you were
no.
committed to this cause? Or
It comes. If it comes.
okay,
And let me tell you, there were a lot of inquiries coming, but nothing got fructified to a sale. I'm
maybe
saying,
because even the universe was designing for you to write that book, which was. Uh, Amit, I want to take the next few minutes talk about creativity as a concept, as a word, as a way of life. And here are some of the things which I frequently hear, and even I had that perception. My first perception was because I was not good at drawing in growing up years. So, I used to hear this in bits and pieces that, your that cousin is creative because she has good art or good drawing you don't have. Or let's say some of my cousins are into acting. So that is a creative field. It's a creative pursuit. Media is a creative line. Sanmito is good at study. She'll do something in study. So I had this perception that studies and creativity are these are very dynamically different field. Or some people who take arts. Then when I joined the workforce, I realized that people also hold this notion, like that person is product management, so that person needs creativity, or a brand manager, that person needs creativity. Accounts doesn't need creativity. But after 1 or 2 years of job, I had this realization which dawned upon me, irrespective of whether you're in accounts, in HR, or in product management, you will get problems, and for those problems you need to think differently. It's not written in a manual. So is this creativity? So this is the question that I still entertain, and I want to know from you, what is creativity in the most simple terms? That's part A. And part B is, creativity localized to certain professions?
in this world, creativity is another concept where you will have hundreds and hundreds and thousands of different interpretation and perception and definition around it.
Yes.
Can we say which one is right or wrong? I mean, the profession itself is so creative. I mean, you can't structurize and saying this is the right definition. I think what I have realized for myself,
Yes.
that there are umpteen number of ways and models of creativity that you can talk about. But I think as an individual, what I have done, I can share from my experience. I have
Yes,
figured
sir.
out my definition of creativity, which works for me.
Okay.
So I think each individual needs to figure out, their philosophy of creativity. Otherwise, you will get completely lost in this madness. So to
Hmm.
me, my definition and my working philosophy of creativity is very simple.
Hmm.
Now that may be applicable or may not be applicable to you.
We get the caution, sir, but please tell us your definition.
So my definition is very simple, which I have realized maybe 6 months back. For me, creativity is nothing but drawing parallels or making unusual, unobvious connections between completely two unrelated fields. You know, when I was writing this book, you know, that's a great example. So in fact, many of the people don't know that before this book came into birth, already I had spent hours and hours on conceptualizing a book.
Which was not this book.
No. In fact, during our college days, I had started, you know, writing something.
That's interesting. Okay.
However,
and then your interest changed to this talk.
I completely discarded.
Okay.
Why I discarded? I mean, I was in a dilemma. You know, should I continue with that original philosophy and thought that I'd earlier written?
Yes.
It was more about, you know, passion, career, you know, choosing your calling, and then giving structured theories around it.
Yes.
And a lot of research around it, which was my earlier avatar. Or should I go this route, which is, you know, very simple everyday experiences and on broader facets of life, be it relationship, be it career, be it anything. At that moment, it was a problem. Let me tell you, it was a big problem to be solved. You know, which route to take. And now creativity for me, you know, how it works. That's a very interesting perspective I like to bring up. So in my book, you know, I have acknowledged the great, Maharishi Vedvyas, because, you know, in India, or rather in the world, I always say, you know, he is the real philosopher of the entire world. I mean, whatever philosophy I talk or any other person talks is just a part of it. And now when Vedavyas, you know, actually he was instrumental in bringing Vedas in 4 different divisions. I think you might be aware. Samveda, Atharva Veda. You know,
I've just heard, but a little knowledge is dangerous thing. So I don't know what it means, sir.
Basically, you know, it's like, you know, when a manufacturer operates, manufactures a machine, right? Then the user needs to get a manual.
Yes.
To operate it effectively. Otherwise, it will get damaged.
Yes.
So when this universe was created, then certain laws, right, in the universe, which were hidden, which was not visible. Like the design of the machine is hidden, right? It's not visible to a user.
Yeah.
So the user manual talks about those design principles. So Vedas is nothing but the user manual for us. You have been gifted this machine, which is universe, and Vedas is the user manual, which every human being needs to not just know but practice it into daily life to really, you know, become a better human being and enjoy this universe. So what Vedvyas did, he actually divided those Vedas into 4 divisions: Samveda, Atharva Veda, Yajur Veda, and Rig Veda. I'll not go into detail because of it. आपका एक डिस्कोर्स चार्ट
फिर हमें पता नहीं कौन से प्लेटफॉर्म पे डालना पड़ेगा इंटरव्यू.
Basically, you know, those different Vedas had different purpose and functions, but everything was very philosophical. I mean, it was written in Sanskrit, very, very deep, very, very deep. I mean, if you read one shloka, it is so difficult to interpret and very philosophical, very abstract. Now, over a period of time, you know, when he started getting feedback from people, and what he realized, you know, that people started saying, you know, Vedas is only for Brahmins, super intelligent, because only they can understand. So they used to respect and pray the Vedas, but they used to never open it and read it.
Because it was construed for the intellectuals or people of a certain intellect. Yeah.
It was written. I mean, see, the universe laws are not so simple, right? It's so abstract, so deep, so complex. So it was written as it is. That's where, you know, Vedavyasa said, oh my God, you know, my entire intention of, you know, making common man to practice these philosophies has got defeated. And that's where he came up with Puranas. If you have heard about Puranas, Shiva Puran, Vishnu Puran, where you have those, you know, interesting mythological stories.
Yes.
Look very unreal, and they are actually fictional. They are not real. They are not historical.
And but they drive across a point, I guess, through each of the
at the end of the story, there is a, you know, philosophy, like how we used to have those moral stories, you know, books during our kindergarten days. You know, you can't talk about great philosophies at that age.
Yes.
So that's when we kind of, you know, came up with Puranas, which were all written with stories and katha. There was a katha thing that started with Puranas. And then it became a, you know, kind of a common mass, and every, you know, human being, whether they are educated, uneducated, intelligent, not intelligent, they could relate with those stories and, you know, imbibe those philosophies. that's where, creativity came into picture.
Yes.
Veda Vyasa kind of
Personality.
वहां पे वो वेदा से उनको पुरानास में आना पड़ा, तो मैं क्यों वेदा जैसा बुक लिखूं? Why should I write? Why not I directly start with a Purana, which is all of stories and has a moral
Legend point. Yes, sir.
So this is how do you make an unusual connection between something which is my core spirituality and something that problem that I was facing, which route to take.
Amit, I'll also like to play here a devil's advocate, okay? And this actually came from a lot of people. So we have a family friend who was working in a corporate. She became a mother, took this sabbatical. Her child is 5-year-old, and like she's at that juncture where she's figuring out what to do next. Now, I was very excited to show her husband the episode of Creativity Rules with Nikhil Kamath, and she said, ये तो बड़ी बड़ी बातें करनी आती है, अब मैं कैसे क्रिएटिव बनूं, मैं क्या करूं, what should I do differently, tell me. And that conversation took a very uncomfortable tone when she said, I'm actually lost, I have a kid, who will take care of it, and who will make my kid study, what if my kid gets into something else. So we started with creativity and it went to kid management, and that question, it left me with an uncomfortable feeling. She said this is only for working professionals, and despite the fact that she has worked in a corporate. So I want to know from you, and it's not only a mother who has taken a sabbatical who is figuring out her next. It is also people who are kind of stuck in that hackneyed, banal job, who are saying, I have to pay my bills. So what do I do? You can be creative because you're an entrepreneur. So what's your take? I'm not saying how they should build creativity or what they should do, but what's that first step they need to take to just accept the situation and figure out the first step? How to get started and get unstuck, sir?
So, if I understand you correctly, are you trying to say there is this belief with certain people that in a certain restricted environment where you have a responsibility,
yes,
a kind of a very big responsibility, then it becomes very challenging even to think about creative. Forget about being creative.
Yes. It's like it can't be applicable.
Of whether to be creative or not, or how to be creative, what is the first step is go back to yourself, ask this fundamental question: why have you chosen the life that you have chosen?
Okay.
What are your values? What do you want from your life? I think that's a fundamental question. See, if you're not satisfied with your status quo,
yeah,
then believe me, it's not just creativity. And in this world, you can't learn anything.
Yeah.
So the question is, why then you have taken that route? And either you accept it with gracefully, your dharma or a duty, or you do something out of it. I think it's not a creativity question. It's something more deeper. And that's what I've learned from my wife. And this is not my psychology. This is what my wife's wisdom, which she keeps sharing. Whenever we meet people and who keep complaining, always complaining about many things in the world and get agitated very quickly, she always says, kuch na kuch usko life se
issue hai.
Issue hai. And that's where it is getting manifested in some other areas.
Okay. So what I'm taking from this part of the conversation is, if someone is complaining and they're getting stuck, it's one thing I liked is they have forcefully chosen that responsibility, or this is also good input for them to take like a brief pause and figure out why they have chosen in life what they're doing and what do they want from their life. So I have a counter on this also, and this I'm saying because a lot of times when I showed my videos, I thought I'll get appreciation, but it got bumped. So it's just leading to another set of questions, because I feel everything I can't be solved, but you can get some solution. Let's say and I hear it from men and women both. There are these men who are 15 years in the job and they say, oh, we're doing this job because we have EMIs. I'm in technology company, EMIs, I can't be an entrepreneur, but I want to be an entrepreneur. I could have done these things, but you have the advantage of age. So I often ask them, who's stopping you? Take the experiment. Why are you so stuck on the EMI? Do something beyond. Because even I had to take a risk when I did this. I was also afraid. And from women it is, मैं तो कुछ भी बन सकती थी पर बच्चे हो गए तो मैं नहीं बन रही हूँ. And I'm reiterating it, sir, because I know for a fact that you can't give me a solution on this. But any message to these set of people who get stuck, and we all get stuck, Amit, at some point in time in life where we figure out why are we doing, what are we doing, could life turn out differently? So, like you gave one solution, why you have chosen what you've chosen, what you want from life. Is there any other hack or any other technique that you'd like to suggest to us?
So basically, when I look at my own life and and I also keep meeting people, मेरे को ये बनना था या ये करना चाहिए था या this is what I want to do, you can do it but we can't do it. So those kind of conversation. I think majorly there are two barriers in people's life. One, I see it more an external barrier. So, when I say external barrier, they want a certain lifestyle, a certain level of income, a certain level of comfort, a certain level of, ye car chahiye, there's a lifestyle.
Location.
Yeah, everything. There's a certain lifestyle that they have built around them.
Yeah.
So the first question is, the moment you take a leap of faith, whether I will get the same comfort and lifestyle that I have living it. And that lifestyle is less to do with your convenience and comfort. Somewhere that lifestyle has got connected with your self-worth and identity. Tomorrow, if I'm, so let me tell you, my fact, I'm coming from a business family. My dad has been a family businessman. I mean, touch wood, and thanks to it, I could also take a lot of leap of faith. When I used to teach, I used to don't get a lot of money, right? During my, I think, corporate days, I had never traveled in a bus, in a public bus. But during my teaching days, I used to travel from Mira Road to Thane through an ST bus, because that was a lifestyle choice I had to compromise on, given the salary of a teacher, which we all know is not very heavily paid, right? Now going by a bus, and when you meet your peer groups who are driving like,
fancy cars,
yeah, and then you meet, they don't have any issue with you traveling by bus.
They don't.
In our, मैं बस से उतरूंगा और उनको मिलूंगा तो क्या बोलूंगा. So I think one is the external, this entire lifestyle and everything that we have made around us, and we are not ready to make those trade-offs, and which you have to make. I mean, which you have to make at some certain point of time. So that's the one, and the second is more deeper internal, which is fear of failure. I mean, whenever you try something different and you're doing it for your own calling, with a lot of criticism and challenges and counter productive arguments coming from your family. Like when I joined as a professor, engineering kiya, MBA kiya, pagal ho gaya, I mean, what the hell are you doing? How much you're going to earn? So obviously there was a huge pressure on me, right?
बीवी कैसे मिलेगी, कौन सी लड़की पसंद करेगी, ये भी होता है.
बीवी तो मिल गई थी मुझे, उसके पास चॉइस नहीं था. But I mean, touch wood, I'm blessed to have a wife who also believes in the same, philosophy and principle. So that the fear of failure is so high. Anyways, it is high. Any new profession you do, any new thing that you do, humanly, वो fear of failure तो रहता ही है. But जब आप खुद से choice लेते हो, when you make your own choices, which is very unconventional, very, very difficult and different than the conventional, herd mentality. Then the fear of failure is too high.
Yes.
Because then there are people just waiting you to fail. And देखा?
मैंने तो कहा था. Yeah.
I think this external lifestyle that we get into, and the internal fear of failure, I think this is the bigger stumbling block for people, to make those leaps of faith. At least it was for me for a certain period of time.
No, I think it's also true, sir. And I'll tell you where I'm coming from. in my previous stint, when I was a principal consultant, we had these financial investment bankers who used to, come in these swanky cars, wear these very expensive suits, and I used to say, life mein kuch aisa karna hai. But then when I got exposed to the kind of work and pressure they were subjected to, I said, life mein mujhe aisa kai kilometer tak nahi karna hai, because maybe you may be earning less in what you do, but there is a sense of satisfaction and sense of happiness which at times money can't buy you. And it took me also some time, and I had to make peace with the fact that I may not make as much money as I'm making before, but at least I'll be happy. And so one thing which I also a lot of times relate to creativity is the first step, according to me, to creativity is also courage, because you're in a very implicit way going against the conventional norms. And there are people ready to pull you down, but you need to make that trade off with yourself, whether you're going to follow that herd mentality, the beaten track, or something else. So I think courage is a very important theme. So, coming towards the closure and culmination, I want to know from you, considering you, I won't say multiple careers, but you've taken these leap of faith from one arena to other. And at times, I think today, right now, you're actually managing two arenas, author and consulting. Um, what are the telltale signs? Because this is another question which comes very frequently of figuring out your purpose. There is a school buzz going on. What on earth are you here for? So, is that a question that you often ask yourself, sir, or the telltale signs for you is that 5 years saturation ho gaya, ab kuch next karna hai? What's your take? How to discover this calling?
I think the ultimate purpose is to discover purpose, and it's a never-ending journey.
I like that. Yeah.
However, if you look at my outer identity, I have teacher, then a consultant, then a coach, and also then a author. But underlying purpose has not changed.
What is that, sir?
My underlying purpose, which has got two now refinements. The first raw version is to actually help individuals and organizations to grow, transform, and develop. So whether I was teaching, whether I was consulting, whether I am coaching, and whether I am writing, ultimately the impact that I'm doing is helping individuals and organizations, either in terms of their growth, development, or change. However, recently I have realized, because my team did a interesting exercise of discovering my brand identity, by talking to my students, my clients, my friends, my relations, and what they came out was, what the USP of my brand was, I am a person who simplifies the most complex stuff in the world. So now, it was a concept, helping people to train or to develop or grow. But now I have got my own personal purpose, very clearly defined, that I help
simplify the most. Yeah, sorry, sir, go ahead.
I help people simplify stuff, complex stuff. So people have come back and said, even on relationships, even on spirituality, even on things which they never imagined that I could have be of help. But in those conversations, I've been able to help them out by simplifying those complex, stuff that goes in the mind of the people. And then the feedback that in today's world, where there is overdose of complexity, overdose of knowledge, overdose of information, I think, my purpose is making more sense to them, because I don't add knowledge to their lives. I don't add complexity to their lives. Whatever mess that they have had in their head, I help them to, unravel it and declutter it and simplify it to them. Now, how to discover it? I think it's a long journey. But signs of it, I think it's very simple. If you enjoy every moment of what you're doing, that means you are aligned to your purpose. If you're not, then you need to kind of you need to re-question. For example, for a long period of time, I should do workshops and trainings. But over a period of time, as I evolved, I realized that's not something I as much as I enjoy as I do change management and long-term organization building or coaching, which gives me a longer and clear, meaningful impact. So it keeps refining as I go, but strategically the direction intent remains. That North Pole is I think clear, but the refinement keeps happening in the journey.
All right.
And everyone figure out their own way of discovering that North Pole.
Figuring it out, no? Yeah.
There's no
I think at
fixed
the end of the day, you have to become your own Google.
Absolutely. This is my biggest realization.
Hmm.
For a long period of time, I used to always believe कि knowledge, learning, wisdom वो सब बाहर है.
हाँ.
बुद्धा को सुना था, but सुनना and experience करना, that's a two different thing.
Hmm.
Lately, I'm realizing more. Everything is within. Everything is within. If you really introspect, deeply reflect, peacefully reconcile, acknowledge your strengths and limitations, see your things as it is, I think we have enough resourcefulness within us.
Amit sir, one thing is, like you said, your purpose underlying is same, to help organizations and individuals grow, transform, and make them develop. But have you been a fan or an advocate of excessive planning and organizing? Like, how has that shifted? Because you're still managing a lot of identities, no? So how do you make time for what you love?
Okay, before I answer that, I recalled one interesting conversation. So you mentioned that what is the purpose? How do you discover?
Yes.
So let me tell you another interesting insight that I have discovered. And thank you again, drawing analogies. Why I'm doing this? Why I'm doing this? Helping people to clarify. And if you remember during my college days, I was so advocating of this philosophy कि career आपको choose out of love and joy, not out of money. And I think if you remember, that was my always, every time
the underlying principle.
Always choose a career based on calling and what matters to you at the self level, not by societal conditions. Now, why did I do? Because my 20 years of life, from my standard 5th, I remember I had dreamt of becoming a mechanical engineer and having a certain lifestyle and a respect. So my entire life that I lived was based on what my parents want, what the society wants, what my teachers want. I was like that good boy. Good boy means you're falling in line with the norms and expectations of the society. And if you tread that line, then you are a bad boy. And even though I was internally, feeling very like completely out of place, but I never listened to that inner voice of mine, because externally it was so rosy, and I was getting that kind of admiration, respect, sab mila tha, everything I was getting. And I think those personal struggles of mine, because at an early age I realized that there's something inside which is really irritating me. I'm not enjoying this kind of life, but I never got that courage to challenge those philosophies for a very longer period of time. I think that personal struggle and adversity, it was not as adverse as you lose a father, you lose a mother, you are, it may not sound so Bollywoodish type, but other person can't define, right, what is the degree of adversity the person is experiencing.
Yeah.
So I was an introvert, and I had, I think, a lot of struggle in that, and I could not voice it out, being an introvert. I never shared that.
Conflict at times gets to you because you're not able to articulate it to the external world. Yeah.
That personal adversity for a longer period of time actually become my universal purpose.
I like that.
If you remember that movie Toilet, where Akshay Kumar goes and fights for the villagers, कि village में ऐसा होना चाहिए. And then the guy, the collector asks you, अभी तक आप कहाँ थे? You are doing such a noble job, but अभी तक कहाँ थे आप? Then he says a very important dialogue. जब तक खुद की नहीं फटती, तब तक दूसरों की नहीं याद आती.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think, you look at Chanakya, you look at all the great people, there was a strong personal adversity that they struggled with. And that eventually became a universal purpose. Gandhiji being kicked out of the compartment and feeling that discrimination. If you look at entrepreneurs who have really gone on to do well, if you look at their idea, where they personally struggled as a customer in that arena, then they, resolved in their mind, now no other customers should suffer and sacrifice for that.
And there has been a personal pain that's associated. Yeah. Okay.
Because then you're not working for a money or accolades or respect, or then it becomes very personal to you.
Yeah.
So I think personal struggle, adversity, and pain for a longer period of time, which has impacted you very strongly, are the seeds of your purpose.
So, Amit sir, coming towards the last part, which was how do you make time? That is another. I think, we humans fundamentally, we are such great creators of creating problems. So when there was office, we used to say we are traveling time, we are going to the airports, we waste a lot of time in traveling. Then came work from home, and we were like, ab to sab kuch khud karna padta hai, and there's too much screen time, fatigue hota hai, kab samay chala jata hai, pata nahi chalta hai. So I think while creativity and everything is great, planning comes as a very core skill. So how do you make time for the multiple things that you do, sir?
Okay. That's one of my favorite question again. So it looks as a question and problem of time.
Yes.
Okay. But if you go deeper, it's not a problem of time. It's a problem of priority. Again, if you go deeper, it's not a problem of priority. It's a problem of values. You're unsure of your own values. Now, when you try to address, why you're unsure of your values, it's not a problem of values conflict also. It's a problem of peace.
Okay.
So when I say problem of peace, you have not discovered, what are the things that keeps you at peace. So saying no to those things which makes you a little bit agitated, which makes you. So for example, I'll give you a very simple example. So I do a lot of coaching, and then clients come to me and say, "Arey kal raat ko na I just watched the Netflix movie. I just did binging over it. Okay, and 3 hours I just wasted my time. I could have done something productive. I could have just simply slept over it. I mean,
yeah.
But when you go deeper and deeper, why the client did that and why the person did it. The person got too much tired of the daily routine. They wanted an avenue to just, stop their brain, and do nothing. Now, why did they reach that state?
Because they were tired.
And then they are not satisfied with what they are doing. Then why they are doing? Because there is a lifestyle choice that they feel that they have to maintain, and plus they believe that there is so much of EMI that I have to pay. Why they have to have an EMI? Why can't you live a simple? So I think people have made their life so complicated and complex that there is enough time. There is no peace with yourself, because we have complicated our lives by so many things which might be others' values but may not be our own values.
Your own value. True, sir.
If I spend a single minute by being agitated and not being peace with myself, I ask that fundamental question to myself, why am I doing that activity? For whom? Someone said beautifully, if you're trading peace for something else, what is the cost?
Yeah.
What's the cost? So I think it's not a question of planning time management. I don't believe in that. In fact, I still manage so many things. I still have enough time.
So I think fundamentally it's about finding out where you find your peace. I think at times people want to evade that question and they get so absorbed by Netflix, because what I've noticed, sir, when sometimes the complexity is too high and you want to run away from that complexity, maybe of a client, of a project, and you're not able to take that first step, you end up watching so much Netflix mindlessly, and next morning you realize I should have slept rather than watching it, to evade it.
This is one example. I'm saying people can get addicted to anything which is not really recreational and productive for their own well-being.
Yes. So I'm just thinking, Amit sir, how to wrap up this conversation, because there are 3 pages worth of content and each content is so diametrically different from each other. But few things that I would like to take away from this conversation is your own evolution from being fascinated to concepts to being fascinated with getting knowledge here and now. I think I'm not personally like seen it, but as I hear you speak, I feel it must have been a journey in itself. And
Absolutely.
I like that example you gave that you had already written a book in your college days and you had to chuck that away and you came up with this book, which was not planned. And this idea got triggered in COVID times when a lot of us were still stuck in a lot of ways. I like the parallel you drew between Maharishi Ved Vyas, the evolution from what was the book, sir, that you said? Vedas to
That's
Puranas.
Purana.
Vedas to Puranas. And I think it's a great example when we try to tell clients that why stories are more
Yeah.
powerful than facts, than figures, statistics, your vision, mission. I think it's a great example. And I like your take on creativity that it's about drawing parallels and unusual connections between unrelated fields. I liked it. And I think Amitsa, one thing has not changed is the fact of which is your deep reflection, the kind of clarity that emerges from your anecdotes. It can't be like you can't have an epiphany at that moment. You must have reflected, like you said,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
thing of external lifestyle and fear of failure. They've been articulated with crystal clarity, and especially the last part of the conversation where you said one of the telltale signs, of course, a lot of people infer saturation as a point that they have to discover their next. But I think one of the telltale sign is also your personal pain, your personal experiences, because once you experience that pain, you don't want someone else to go through that pain. And again, I was blown away towards the end by problem of time to problem of priority to problem of values, problem of peace. I've never thought of planning and organizing this way. So I think uh, it's very interesting, but more than interesting, sir, I think it's practical. Because if you do certain things which you get you in flow, which makes you cut off from the external world, come what may, you'll do it. You'll make time for things that matter. So a lot of things, sir. And I'm so happy you made time for doing this, sir. A lot of takeaways, a lot
I
of
didn't. I enjoyed it, so I didn't have to make a time.
And so, right before the session, I was just writing like, how do I introduce you? So I went through your LinkedIn and everything. But just for our viewers, and so some of the things you may have evolved, so those things may not be true. But I've always seen you as an individual who has composure, a lot of composure in abundance, but with a sense of restlessness, of doing things well, of doing things right, of creating that value for whoever is there in your ecosystem, a sense of ambition, but with a sense of maturity. Because I remember last year when we were having conversation and you were going for a walk, and I was like, Amit sir, आपको walk के लिए time मिल जाता है, आपका work-life balance है, and you said, I do it with a sense of purpose. I hope you remember it. So it's not like there is no ambition or you're laid back. I think there's a sense of intrinsic maturity that's not very relatable to ambition, how ambition is perceived.
Or I would say, I have realized that life has to have a balance of ambition
Yes.
and contentment.
Yes, so I think that's very visible. I think you're one of the person, and this I remember even from the Olympic days, who makes his presence felt through a lot of silence. Also, I think you use silence very effectively. So now you're saying that you listen more. I am very intrigued to watch one of your sessions, sir, because you use listening phenomenally, and a lot of your expressions come from listening. When you're able to play back those insights that even the other person had not thought through. So I think that's amazing. And one thing I, I don't know if I verbalized it to you, but brevity, your ability to articulate a lot in few words. So I think a lot of impact that you've created is through your brevity. And some of your perspectives, like I was just, as I was watching them, they are profound, but they are relatable. So they are not profound in a way that I feel, my God, अब अमित सर से कुछ बोलूंगी तो वो कुछ ऐसा बोलेंगे कि मुझे समझेगा ही नहीं. So I think you make life simple. So I think so. Those things I feel they still hold true. But if you have a difference of opinion, feel free.
No. I think I never thought on myself as much as you have thought. So I really appreciate that. I mean, the way you have gone back and connected, those memories of the past and able to still articulate, the essence of my personality. I'm one is I am feeling great about it. And I'm also feeling surprised that how much observation power you have for you to, kind of jot it down. So many attributes of mine, which, I mean, to a certain extent hold true. I mean, which many people have
Yeah.
kind of spoken about.
All right. Thank you so much, Amit sir. It was great talking to you. And I will keep on bugging you for my questions, life problems, client problems. So please make time for them, sir.
Absolutely, anytime.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Bye. Take care.
Bye, sir.